Two children from Delphi, they go for a walk. There's no school and they plan to enjoy the most of their day. However, they would never be seen again, as the sleepy town would be shocked forever.
What we know is what we know, and we're not ready to talk about that yet.
How close are you right now to getting this solved?
One piece away. One piece away. Eventually somebody's going to do the right thing. He has no idea what we know, but one day he will.
Stick around for this one. You ain't going to want to miss it. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm Lloyd, and today you're watching When Evil Follows.
4 years after it shocked the city of Delphi, police there are still trying to figure out who killed Abby Williams and Libby German.
Today we're heading off to the sunny state of Indiana, to a small Midwest town called Delphi. Delphi is a small town with a cute population of around 3,500 people. The town is more commonly known for the Wabash River and Deer Creek, both of which are important waterways running through into the main city. Delphi is a quiet town with stunning views and open spaces. Its farm inequality and history is as equally as impressive as well. However, there's not a lot that happens really in this small old town, but all this was about to change in the February of 2017. Libby German and Abigail Williams, they were two young girls that lived in the same town. They were very close and more or less always together. They were the best of friends. They both attended the same school, the Delphi Community Middle School. Abby, she loved being at school and she loved her education. She also loved being outdoors. She enjoyed movies, music, camping, hiking, swimming, and playing outdoor sports. And Libby, she enjoyed school also. She enjoyed playing in the school band and she enjoyed playing the saxophone. She loved outdoor sports, football, volleyball, and rounders. Both girls would go on to be the best of friends, and it would be quite unusual to see one without the other. Both girls owned a gentle nature, and they were both creative and kind individuals. And so this brings us to February the 13th, in the year of 2017, where Libby and Abby were enjoying an afternoon out hiking together, and so they both decided to walk the old abandoned Monon High Bridge Trail, just east of Delphi. The trail is as beautiful as ever, and the trail actually leads over the Monon High Bridge. The Monon High Bridge is an old decommissioned railway bridge. In fact, some of the locals really enjoy walking over this old bridge, purely for the views and its scary heights. On this particular afternoon in February, it was a warm afternoon and the girls, they had no school as school was closed. And both girls wanted to make the most of their day, and so they decided to walk the old trail together. This particular part of the town wasn't very far away from both of their homes, and it was only a mile away from the town centre. However, despite these facts, the trail area was a quiet and secluded spot, and the bridge isn't the safest place to be, especially for two unsupervised young girls. A family member, Libby's older sister, dropped them off with an agreed understanding that both girls would be picked up in 2.5 hours at around 3:15 by Libby's father. And with that, both Abby and Libby stepped out of the car at around 1 p.m. and they started their afternoon adventure. And their afternoon started off pretty great. They walked along the High Bridge Trail and they arrived at the Monon Bridge. It was roughly around 2 hours later when Libby took a really eerie photograph of Abby, who was standing on the bridge. Libby then posted the photograph to her Snapchat. However, by the time 3:15 came around, the girls were nowhere to be seen, and they didn't show up at their pickup point as agreed. And strangely, every phone call that was made to Libby's phone simply went unanswered. And then after a short time, the calls were then redirected straight to the voicemail. At this point in time, both families, they didn't seem too alarmed. And so both families, they decided to walk down to the nature trail to see if they could find Libby and Abby. However, the hours passed and the girls were still nowhere to be seen. They had disappeared and both families became quite concerned. The local sheriff department was informed at around 5:15 p.m. and as the evening went on, the news of the girls' disappearance began spreading across the town as all the locals from in the area began whispering their fears. Sheriff Lazenby told the TV news that he believed that both girls shouldn't be in any kind of severe danger, and at this time the sheriff department believed that the girls have simply managed to get lost in the woods and would sooner rather than later find their way back home. However, much later on in the evening when the girls didn't return back home, over 60 local people from the area all volunteered to help in an effort to search for Abby and Libby. The only clues given to the sheriff and the search crews was of where the girls were last seen. This information came from the eerie Snapchat photograph of Abby who was standing on the bridge just before they both disappeared. The sheriff department and locals, they searched all over the area and they searched high and low and they searched right up until midnight, but the search was stopped at around 12:30 a.m. purely because of the drop in temperature and because of the darkness. However, some family members and locals, they continued searching for the girls throughout the night. The next day, crews resumed the search efforts in looking for both Libby and Abby, as it was now the following day, and the date was the 14th of February, which is Valentine's Day. The search crews widened their search area and they began looking further away from the abandoned railway track, and they started to look within the wooded areas, including under the bridge and all the footpaths leading into Deer Creek. And it was only about 2 hours into the search when one of the crew members screams out, "Guys, I think I found something here." And what they found was footwear. Just a black trainer matching the same description that Libby was wearing. And it was shortly after this point, search crews, they made a grim discovery. They discovered two bodies of which belonged to both Libby and Abby. Both bodies were found in the creek, on private land, right next to the river's edge, and less than a mile away from their original pickup point.
Investigators solemnly identified the two bodies found in Carroll County as 13-year-olds Libby German and Abby Williams.
First, with an update on the investigation. Rich?
Anne-Marie, the autopsies confirmed identities, but how these children were killed, the circumstances surrounding their death, police aren't talking about that. They say they don't want to say anything that could jeopardize this double homicide investigation.
The police and mainstream media, they both haven't released any official information on how both of these girls died. However, some details came to light through leaked messages from one of the search members. These leaked messages detailed that Abby was shot and stabbed multiple times through the lungs and her heart, and Libby's neck had been cut so deeply that her head was barely attached. She also had been shot. The families were obviously they were heartbroken, and the local community and police force were devastated. The law enforcement said that both deaths were homicide, and they offered over a $300,000 reward on anybody with information that would lead to the arrest of the twisted killer. Now, just before these two girls were so violently taken, both of the girls were crossing the bridge when Libby saw a stranger, a man, who was walking towards them, and his presence obviously made Libby feel uncomfortable. She must have felt a sense of worry, and so she took out her phone and she started recording, and then put the phone back into her pocket, leaving the phone on record mode. Libby showed courage and bravery at that particular moment, and what Libby recorded would be something that would frustrate everybody and haunt people until this very day. Now, this is where things get somewhat complicated, to say the least. The local police released to the general public a 2-second clip that was captured by Libby. However, unofficial sources believe that the video clip lasted well over 2 minutes, because right after Libby started recording, she put her phone back in her pocket, leaving the phone in recording mode. And that's when both girls started to walk away from this unidentified suspect on the bridge. Now, both girls at some point, they made it across that bridge, with Libby's phone still recording and concealed within her pocket. And that's when Libby's phone managed to record and pick this up.
Guys, downhill. Guys, downhill.
And that's basically all we know. Well, that was until the police released 2 mugshots of the wanted suspect to the public. 3 or 4 days after the girls were murdered, the state police called Libby a hero for having the brave and clever wit of mind to start recording under intense and awkward pressure when she did. Libby's video and audio clip quickly gave her suspect a name, and that name was the Bridge Guy. So what stands out about this released footage? Well, as you would agree, to have any kind of recording or audio is purely down to the girl's clever wit. And as you would expect, both the audio and video have been studied by hundreds of thousands of people online and closely analysed by the police. And with so many different theories flying around online, these are the facts as what we know to be as true. The video was taken on the bridge. It shows a stranger walking towards both Libby and Abby. He's a stocky kind of build, around 200 to 220 pounds, a white male, and believed to be around 5'11" in height. The video shows the suspect wearing faded blue jeans with a dark blue jacket, with what looks like to be some sort of winter cap or winter hat. He's also wearing a fanny pack. Also notice as well that both of his hands are inside his coat pockets, and it kind of looks like he's holding something in his right pocket. And from my own personal experience, only people over 45 plus would wear a fanny bag. He's also clearly walking with a limp as well, which is clearly obvious and can be seen within the final fraction of the video clip. He then turns towards the girls, when Libby was on the south side of the bridge entrance when she started recording the suspect. The suspect was around 80 to 90 feet away from her, and Abby, who was the closest to the suspect, was walking back towards Libby, which strongly indicates that both girls walked all the way across that bridge. Unconfirmed sources stated that just after this video clip was taken, Abby turned to Libby and she asked her if the man is still following them, to which Libby responded back with, yep. And so both of those two girls, they knew something wasn't right. And then just shortly after that, they were both told to head down the hill. The police force stated publicly the video and audio files were from the same media file as Libby's mobile phone, with the suspect's voice unknowingly captured during the time of the criminal activity. The suspect commanding both girls to walk down the hill was not too far from where the girls captured their suspect on video, and after walking down the hill, it's the accurate location as to where the search crews found both of the girls' bodies. The south side of the bridge is an embankment, and when walking down the hill, it leads towards the river Deer Creek. Weeks after the girls were murdered, the Indiana State Police Force released a sketch and description of the suspect to the public. The police sketch was created after the police received information from many eyewitnesses who were in that area at the time Libby and Abby went missing. These eyewitnesses, they all described a man who looked very similar to the suspect in Libby's video clip. Fast forward just 2 years later to the 22nd of April in the year of 2019, to where the Indiana State Police Force held a press conference where they released a second sketch. However, this second sketch appeared to be a totally different person, and is not the person believed to be the main suspect from Libby and Abby's video. And so the police released this second sketch, and also updated their description of the man who they believe was aged between 18 and 40 years of age. Superintendent Doug Carter stated,
"We decided through all the information we have received that we was always going to release a second sketch. We don't believe the individual knew we were going to do that. So it was really important. I believe the killer was most probably there at the last press conference, or was watching from home, simply because he thought we was on the wrong path."
Both sketches were composed from individual eyewitnesses who were in and around the area on that same day both of the girls disappeared. The Indiana State Police reviewed this second sketch and believed this second sketch drawing to be a much more accurate description, more so than the first original sketch that went public just months after the murders happened. The other information the police said was they believed the killer was living locally and was very familiar with the location and the area. The superintendent Doug Cartwright, he publicly said,
"I've walked across that high bridge myself. It's 65 to 70 feet off the riverbanks, and it hasn't had a train on it since 1929. The ties to the bridge are starting to rot. It also sways back and forth, and it's not something you can just jump onto and walk straight across, especially if you've never done it before. I decided I was going to take the riverbank going back, and I did. So this leads me to believe that this wasn't that man's first time of being up on that high bridge. There's just no way. Again, this is just my own opinion. I experienced crossing that bridge, and I've kept a piece of that bridge with me, and I carry it with me every day until I find out who this man is and bring this man to justice.
During the busy press conference in April 2019, the Indiana State Police asked the public for help and support with their inquiries. The police, they wanted to identify the driver of a vehicle because this particular vehicle was parked up on the roadside and not too far away from the Monon High Bridge. On that same day, at around the same time Libby and Abby went missing, the state police gave away absolutely nothing. No details or clues, no mention of a license plate or its colour, not even what kind of model of car they were looking for. Although the police did mention that they do have new information and new leads, it's believed that the reason as to why the police didn't give away any further information at the time was purely because of the crime accountability and not wanting to give too much away. And so this leads us to the main question. Who is Bridge Guy? Well, after Libby and Abby's bodies were found, the Indiana State Police named a suspect they believe was connected to this case. The suspect was male and lived in the area of Indiana, and his name was Daniel Nations. However, after many long and extensive interviews with police, it wasn't too long before the police released and explained to the general public that Daniel Nations was no longer a suspect in this murder case. So, who else could Bridge Guy be? The police soon turned their eyes towards a different person of interest, a person with an extremely dark past. This second person of interest is a man named Charles Eldridge. And just so you know, this is what we know about Charles Eldridge. He was arrested and charged for child molestation and child soliciting back in January of 2019. And the majority of people that knew Charles Eldridge would go on to describe him as a crazy and violent weirdo who spends most of his days just hanging out in the woods alone by himself. The FBI were contacted by the police in Delphi County and alerted them to the potential link between Charles Eldridge and the Delphi murders on accounts of his strong match of the suspect's sketch description, that and the fact that he likes to hang out alone in the woods by himself alone. However, the police said that there's simply just not enough there to link him to the girls' murders. So that brings the main focus of this police investigation to this guy, Paul Etter. The police were very keen to talk to him about his ongoing criminal activities. A 26-year-old woman made allegations of sexual assault and abuse against him, and lo and behold, he was in the area the same day when the girls went missing. However, shortly after these claims were made against him, he took his own life in the year of 2019. So yeah, that's all we know. Or is it? It's been almost 6 years and only now has this new information come to light, thanks to the brilliance of an unknown source, Pod Teamcaster, who passed on this information to the police. You see, that day when both of the girls were reported missing to the local sheriff, Libby for quite some time had been using social media platforms, and she got talking to who she believed was a famous young internet sensation, an up-and-coming model, Anthony Shots. Anthony Shots would post regular content on social media. He would post half-naked photographs of himself in a swimming pool or stood in front of a mirror half-naked, posing. And these were the perfect pictures to capture the attention of any young girl. Anyways, shortly after talking to Libby, Anthony arranged to meet Libby on the Monon High Bridge. That same day, she actually went missing. So, who is Anthony Shots? Meet Keegan Kline. Keegan Kline would use the profile name Anthony Shots on Facebook and Instagram in order to trick his victims into sending and receiving naked photographs of underage girls. And once he got their approval, to make matters even worse if that's possible, he would try and arrange meets with these younger and exceptionally vulnerable younger girls. Keegan Kline, now known by police, is a sexual deviant and predator, with well over 150 indecent photographs and videos on his phone and computer. And after many months of speculation and deep investigation, the whereabouts of where Keegan was on February the 13th in 2017 has been confirmed, and Keegan Kline was cleared from all investigations. After watching the video clips of the killer and listening to the audio clips captured on Libby's phone, along with eyewitness descriptions and a so-called detailed sketch, it's just completely and utterly crazy to think that even with all this information, the police haven't made a final arrest. Until now. Fast forward 5 years and the year is now 2022, when a very timid and scared resident finally came forward and told police something that would completely change the dynamics of this investigation once and for all. This new witness said, "On the day those 2 girls were murdered, I was driving back from my sister's and I saw a man walking along the roadside. He seemed to stand out to me. I think it's because he was limping and he was walking quite quickly. Normally when one has a limp, they walk much slower. He was also wearing a large blue jacket and blue jeans, and he was dirty. He looked muddy and bloody, and it's never left my mind since." And so the police, they quickly paid a visit to this muddy and bloody person in question, and this person was a 50-year-old man, Richard Allen. So here's what we know about Allen. He's a local married man who works downtown at the CVS store in Delphi. He's overweight and is around 5 foot 10 inches tall, who also has an irregular limp. The police carried out a search warrant at Allen's home address, and that's when detectives found hidden away at the back of the resident's garage an old dusty box. Inside the box was an old pair of boots and 2 large hunting knives and a handheld .40 caliber pistol. Inside the house, detectives also found a large blue jacket. This blue jacket seems very familiar, exactly the same as the one that the suspect was wearing, captured on Libby's cell phone. All of these items were immediately sent away for forensic testing, and it didn't take too long before the test results returned back to the police. The bullet casing matched up to the same bullets found at the crime scene, and the knife wounds that were found on the bones of both bodies matched up perfectly to the curvature of the knife used. And it was just a few days later, during police interrogations, Richard confessed to police that he was responsible for the deaths of both Liberty German and Abigail Williams. Just 4 weeks later, Alan Richard was sentenced to face 2 life terms in prison, which of course means that he will never get out. Not in this lifetime. That's for sure. And good, rightly so. You know, the German family and the Williams family will continue to deeply miss Abby and Libby and their beautiful, young, loving, warm and bright personalities every day. And I can only wish the families the very best in moving forwards with our love and blessings. Hey guys, I just want to say thank you very much for watching this episode of When Evil Follows. If you've enjoyed this video, then please consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that like button. Your support to this channel really means the world to us and ensures that we're able to make more great videos in the future, just like this one. We publish crazy solved and unsolved crime videos every single week, right here on this channel. So go ahead, hit the bell and join our community. So what do you think to this case? Do you think the police could have done a lot more? It took almost 5 years to solve this. But why so long? Why do you think Alan did this? Tell me what you think in the comments below. And, as always, look after yourself and stay safe. And I'll see you again the next time when evil follows. Bye.